Alright, here we are in Blender. I've got a chair here that I created, and I textured and surfaced that in Substance Painter. And so I'm going to show you essentially the workflow for creating something similar. We're going to do a dresser, I believe, and the same kind of workflow with something a little bit simpler. This was a little bit more involved as far as modeling is concerned. So we'll try something a little bit simpler and get started with it and go through the same process. And we'll make that dresser and put it right here next to our chair. I'm going to save this, and we're going to start with a new file here in Blender 2.9. And basically I'm going to start with the structure, with the overall structure of the dresser first. So I'm going to go ahead and move our cube. Everyone deletes the default cube. I tend to leave it depending upon what I'm working on. And we're going to basically create the proportions here for what we want. And eventually I'm going to go through and start telling you guys about shortcut keys that I use. But right now, because I don't have the screen cast keys on, I'm just going to use the standard tools here so you get a sense of what I'm doing as I'm doing it. I'm just taking the default cube and squeezing it down to a thinner size. There's a couple of ways you can size this. You can go ahead and grab the up arrow there of the scale tool. We can also use a shortcut key. In this case it would be S, and then right after, before you press anything else, you would say Z, so it would only scale in the up and down Z axis direction. I'm going to undo that. And you can also do something like going into edit mode, marquee selecting the points. If you have points selected up here in the upper left hand corner here, there's points, edges, and faces. If we have point mode selected in edit mode, I can now have those marquee selected, and if you press G and then Z, you can now drag those points up by just rolling your mouse, pushing your mouse upward and clicking, and then it is finished. And then I click off of those to release those points, and we have what I would consider the back of our dresser. Now there's a few ways that you can go about doing this. I'm going to make this all in separate pieces because it'll be a lot easier to do the UVing for later. Less seams to cut and so forth, and we'll get into that later on. But this is going to be our back section, the back board of that. Now as I go, I'll do something you're going to see here. I'm going to go back to object mode. Yeah, let's go back to object mode, and with this back selected, I'm going to go into object here, right at the top, go down to apply, and apply just all the transforms. Well, let's just do the scale and rotation. That way, when I go and apply UVs and stuff, it won't screw it up. You'll see what I mean when I get there. It's possible I'll have to apply all transforms, but once you scale something up like the default cube, we took it, we squished it, we stretched it, the UVs are still seen as just a square. So you have to tell it this so that it now will see when you go to UV it. It's a big flat rectangle. Anyway, at any rate, let's go ahead and create the other parts. I'm going to duplicate this by going Shift D, then clicking without moving my mouse, because if you Shift D and move your mouse, you'll drag it into a weird space. So I'm going to pull this guy out. I'm going to use this as the front of our dresser, but we'll get to it in a second because I'm now going to make the sides as well out of this same piece. So once again, Shift D, and I'm going to show you what happens when you Shift D. I'm going to hold Shift and then click D. If I accidentally move my mouse, I'm moving that thing everywhere. I haven't clicked yet, so when I click, it drops it off where it was. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to make sure this piece is highlighted, go Shift D and then click. Now I can move this guy wherever I want to, and I'm trying to keep the top and bottom levels equal. So I'm just going to use the rotate tool here for this, and I'm going to turn, and now after I've done something, you see down in the left hand bottom corner, there's a little menu that pops up. After you do anything in the viewport, this will pop up, and give you options for what you just did. So this has been turned in at negative 54.7. I can just turn it 90 and then press enter. It turns at 90. This will eventually go away when I do something else. So you'll see. So that's now at 90 degrees. I'm just going to click on our little controller doohickey over here. Look from the Z-axis downward. I'm going to use the move tool here as opposed to using a shortcut key, which I'll get to. And we're going to move that way in the Y-axis and now in the X-axis, and just put that guy right up against those two sides. I'm actually going to put it on the inside of these two pieces. So we want to scale that just inside here in the Y-axis, as you know, pretty close. We're going to go and make this perfect in a second. Then we're going to use the move tool, move that in right there. And you know, I don't have this perfectly centered between these pieces or anything, but there's an easier way to do this. You just go into edit mode with that piece selected. I select. Now here's the thing. If I marquee select these guys, it's possible, and that's what happened, I did not select the 2 points at the bottom because it couldn't see them because they were behind those points. So to get all of those points, let's just go back to where we were looking down here. To get all the points, I want to click on this X-ray mode here, and now I can drag select, and I'll have all 4 of those points selected. So now, I'll click the move tool, I'm going to move up and just connect those really closely, and come down here, marquee select these, the other ones will deselect, and now I'm just going to move those close as well. I'm going to go back into object mode, and rotate back out to see what we've done. We still have our see-through X-ray button clicked here, so I'm going to turn that off. And you can see we have a back and a front and one side. Now to make our other side, we make sure it's clicked or selected. We Shift D, click, and then drag that over. And to get that perfectly aligned, there's 100 different ways you could do it. Looking down from the top is probably the most precise way. But we can also eyeball it by doing this, just dragging it until it looks good, and there you go. Okay, so now we will need a top. The top is going to be a little bit bigger than the bottom. We will need to build a little frame around the bottom here as well. It's kind of typical of how they look. Just kind of gives a little inset and a lift up off the floor. It's a pretty simple thing to do. The easiest and quickest way probably will be to duplicate these sides and walls again. So I will probably, I'm wondering if I should do them all at the same time, but let's just do one at a time. I'm going to take the side here. I'm going to Shift D. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to look from the top here. I'm going to move this in just to where that edge is inside the other one, okay? And this is going to seem a little bit strange maybe, but I'm going to take the whole thing and just move it down to where a little lip of it sticks out the bottom here. You can see that little lip right there. It's inset from the edge. And now I'm going to go back up here, and I'm just going to select those points and pull them down to be, you know, like a little bottom edge board from the inside. So I go into edit mode. Probably should turn on the X-ray here. You can see those two are selected, but we want the 4 at the top. So we're just going to marquee select those and then pull our little move tool down to about right there. And then now we have that. We're going to go back into object mode and take a look at this. It's in X-ray mode still, but you can see that there's just a little piece here at the bottom that goes from front to back. We're going to duplicate that, move it over to the other side. So Shift D, click, get our move tool, and look, it's not in the right place because it was aligned or you know, relative to the original size of this guy. So what we're going to do is a little hidden thing here right up in the right side where it says options over here above your viewing options. You'll click that down and click the box that says origins. Affect only origins. So we click that, and now we can move the origin right down. This is one way of doing it. There are others. And then we'll make sure we click back in here and uncheck origins. So now we can move the box itself. So that is one way of doing that. There are a few ways, but that is one way. So we're just going to move this. It's going to be kind of hard for you guys to see. Let me put it in wireframe mode. There's a line. That's the line that indicates the inside of that sidewall. We're just going to move this over just in the x-axis until we're right up against that. And now we have one on each side of the inside of that. We're going to duplicate that guy again. Just Shift D and click. We're going to rotate that 90 degrees. So what we're going to do is a keyboard shortcut to jump from the move tool to the rotation tool. I could click on this here, the rotation tool button. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit R, which puts it in rotate mode. And then I'm going to say in the Z axis, so I just push the Z key, which brings up the Z axis. And now I'm going to put 90. It's going to turn it 90 degrees. And to finish it, you press enter and it's all good to go. Now you just move your object where you want it. Get that essentially in the right place. And now see the red axis, that's the X. So if we press S for scaling, we could also be pushing the buttons, remember that. And then the X, it'll only scale in the X axis. So we can go approximately like that. You can press G for grab and then press the X. And now you're only moving in the X axis. For those of you who don't know. All right, so back here to the front view, we're going to go into edit mode, upper left. Make sure we're in points mode. We're going to drag our points just in that X axis using the handle to the edge of that little board on the inside. We'll do the same thing with this side right to there. And I'm going to look at this like so. We're going to go back into object mode one more time. And we're going to duplicate this again. So make sure it's just the bar at the bottom. Shift D, click, and then pull this back along the y-axis until it gets right on that edge here. You can kind of see how I line that up with that inside of the underneath edge board there. So I'm going to put this back in our lit mode. I'm going to take it out of X-ray mode. And you can see we now have this little area on the bottom. Now I'm noticing this front board is a little bit pushed back. So I'm just going to move that forward in the y-axis. You can see that little edge right here. It needs to just move forward in the y-axis a little bit to be complete. And there we go. All right. We could put a bottom in it, but we don't need to right now. So that is 4 sides. There are 4 sides to our box. There are 4 sides to our base. And at any time we can go back and apply all the transforms. So select each one if you will. Go to object up here. Apply. Rotation and scale is fine for now. Once again, object, apply, rotation and scale. If you do all transforms, I'll show you. That one looks like it's been done. I'm just going to put all rotation scale. Now I'm on this back one, right here on this back one. I'm going to go object, apply all transforms, and it moves the manipulator to where it believes it should be. If I do that here on this one, and I do all transforms, it'll move it to the origin point, which is not going to matter later. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that on all these so that they're all the same. Just click on each object, go to object, apply all transforms. Matter of fact, you can, I believe, select all the objects and do it all at once. Object, apply all transforms. Everything will go down here to the bottom. Now when we click on each one, yeah, they're all have been centered back to the origin, which is, it's okay. So we need a top. So once again, we're going to just create a new cube. Add mesh cube. We're going to bring that up in the z-axis. It already is the perfect width because we didn't change the width of the default cube when we made the back, just the thickness and the height. So now I'm going to make sure that we change our height to this guy. Now see, I'm doing it with the manipulator, and it could be kind of difficult this way. So if we click S, Z, no matter what we do, it's only going in the Z, but I'm still having a little bit of an issue with it, but that's okay. I'm going to make the top a little bit thicker, probably like so, and click, and now that is set to be that thickness. And now, of course, we need to change the width. I could adjust it this way, but there's no way I'm going to get this exactly the right size, so the best way at this point is to go into edit mode and grab our points and make them fit how we want. Now, don't forget, if we put it in X-ray mode, we can see all points. We need to make sure we are in point mode. I'm going to click over here in the gray area just to deselect everything. And I'm going to go into our top view from the Z-axis. And I'm going to turn on wireframe mode so we can see all of the edges and lines from the piece below. Right now there is no true directionality to it, but I'm wanting the bottom here to be our front face. So I'm going to marquee select these back two. Okay, you can use the handle to move here if you want, but the shortcut would be G, Y to move it in that particular axis. And there's no chance of you accidentally going along the x-axis or anything else, because you're only able to drag in the y-axis. So once I get it to the line, I click, it's in place. I'm going to do the same thing to the front. Now we could select the edges or the points here, but I'm going to select the points. I'm going to G, Y again, and this one I'm going to let overhang a little bit in the front and just click right there. So when we look at this, there is a little bit of an overhang. We also need to push this guy up in Z. So back in object mode, we're going to come out of the X-ray and go back into a viewport, an unlit mode, and make sure we're not in X-ray. And we're going to just pull this guy up to where it's going to be on the top. And to make sure it's sitting there, we're going to look from the front here in the y-axis. Zoom in a little bit and move that around till we know it's sitting right on there. There we go. Okay, so there's our basic box. And to this one, we need to go to our object, apply all transforms is fine. We're not going to be moving that again, so I don't mind that the cursor is now dropped down to the origin point. It's fine for now. It's just the way of working I've gotten used to. Now the front, we're going to need to cut out some holes so that our drawers fit. We need to decide what the shape and size of those holes are. I'm thinking about 4 drawers would be pretty good and standard, so I'm going to add a cube just for the top one. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this. This way works, and then there's another way that could possibly be better. So I'm going to show you a couple ways. We could use a Boolean where one shape cuts out another. It can get kind of messy. I'm going to just kind of give you an average shape here or size of the drawer. So I'm just going to square this down a little bit. Now you notice I'm not really worried about just, you know, how deep this is. I'm going to make it a little bit less deep. I'm going to move it back along the Y again to where it intersects the front only. It's not sticking out the back. It's only intersecting this front section. Now, so doing a Boolean, what we want to do is select the face that's going to be cut, add a modifier from the modifiers tab here. Under generate, we'll go to Boolean, make sure that the settings here are on difference, click the eyedropper and select the object that's going to be doing the cutting, and we have now cut a hole in the front. It's not permanently cut or actually cut. Matter of fact, if we select this cube and move it, there will be no hole. It's only a hole while it is intersecting. So we click back on the face that we want the hole on. The modifier is still there on the right. To make that stay, we would come over here and click this little drop down next to the render button and click apply. Then we can go back and delete this cube or move it and reuse it, and we would have the appropriate cutout hole for our drawer. That's the fastest way of doing this. And if we are not happy with the size or placement of these, we can change them in a bit. Another way would be to select the face, go into edit mode, and then add loop cuts along the area that we wanted to cut a section out, and then we would have to go back and actually fill in polygons where the front and back were not connected. But that's not as fast as this way. It's just another option of doing it. But since we've already begun this way, I will show you how we can do this again and not really worry about the placement until the end. So we have our face again that we want to cut out. Over in the modifier tab, we will add a Boolean. We will make sure it's on difference. We will click our eyedropper, select the box, and then come back over here and click apply. Now we can take our box, move it down. We have two holes, and I'm not even measuring the distance between these yet. We'll do that in a minute. So I'm going to take this face again. We will come over here. We'll add the Boolean once again. We will click on the eyedropper, select the cutter box, and there we go. And apply. One more time. We're going to move our box down. There's probably a difference in distance between the drawers, but that's okay. We'll select the face. That's the piece that's going to be cut. We add a modifier to it, the Boolean modifier. We will make sure it's on difference. We will select the eyedropper, select the box that's going to be doing the cutting, and then we click apply. I'm only applying this modifier because we want to keep that. We're not going to be changing the fact that that's cut a hole. Okay, so now I'm going to leave our drawer where it is. I'm just going to press H on the keyboard while it's highlighted to hide it. Because what I want to do is I want to rearrange and even out the holes that I've now cut in the face of this. A good way to do that is to look from the front along the Y-axis by clicking our little green button there. Going into wireframe mode, going into X-ray, and coming into edit mode as well. And with our points selected, we're going to just move these points around until they look evenly spaced. But we want to select the entire drawer opening. If we move the bottom, that hole is not going to be able to fit our drawer anymore. We just are worried about the space in between them. So the best thing to do here is probably just, it looks to me like these are pretty good. Let's see if we can make two squares in between each drawer. So I'm going to click off to deselect everything. I'm going to do a marquee select around everything. And since we have X-ray on, we are selecting the points all the way through. We can click on the move tool. We'll just do that for the first one. I'm going to move that down until it's right on that grid line. Now we have two squares between each box. We'll see if we can get away with that. I'm going to marquee select all of these guys, but this time we're going to press GZ so that we can drag without clicking. You just pull down, just roll your mouse down. There we go, and click when you're done. So there's two between that one. Now this one's going to be different because we have about 1.5. So we need to make sure we move this one up about 1/2, which looks like it's going to be absolutely perfect. So I'm just going to drag select those. We're going to click G, Z, and just move our mouse up. Don't click, just move it up that 1/2 square. And now we have, we have right on that line, 2 between these guys. There's a full 1.5, which equals 2, and then 2 more here. So they're evenly spaced out from each other now, and perfect. So back out of edit mode into object mode. We're going to click off X-ray mode and click on solid mode. And now we have our dresser box with its openings for the drawers. So I only hid that last cube instead of getting rid of it because we're going to use it. It's the perfect dimensions of this hole, so we might as well use it for our drawer. over here you can see the cube, and it has this little eye clicked closed, so because it's hidden. So we're going to click that eye. Now it unhides it, and we can use this to create our drawer from, or at least as a template. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use it for the back of the drawer and then make everything from there. We select the box. We're going to use shortcut keys. So I'm going to go S for scale, Y for the direction we want to scale it in. And then you just drag your mouse down. You don't have to click any buttons. Just drag it down until you get a thickness that works. So let's just go with that and click when you're done. Now you'll see when I drag the drawer to that hole, it fits in that hole perfectly. It's the perfect size when it's aligned for that drawer. We might even make it a tiny bit smaller just to ensure that when the drawers slide in and out, they don't clip the edge there. So I'm just going to drag that down just a little bit. And we can correct that a little more later as well in edit mode. Let's go ahead and do that now. It'll become a problem if we don't do it now. So in edit mode, I'm just going to go to our, looking down the y-axis, click into wireframe mode, and we'll just marquee select the bottom of this drawer. It looks like it needs to be brought up just a little bit. And now we don't have any sides touching. So nothing should clip when we're just normally moving the drawer. So we'll click off of everything. It looks good. We'll go back into object mode, go back into solid mode, zoom out, and okay, we're good to go there. So now to make the drawer, there's a few ways we can do this. We can do some UV seams. We're going to have to do some of them anyway. Or we can make this in 4 pieces, 5 pieces, including the bottom. Let's go ahead and make the back and the sides and the bottom all one piece, and then we'll make the drawer front a separate piece so we can control its look a little easier. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to put some loop cuts here and then pull the sides forward and the bottom. Let's just do them all together. So we'll take this plank, we'll go into edit mode with it, and the first thing we're going to want to do is come over here to the left and click on this loop cut button. Now if we go just in the center, nothing happens. If we go more toward the edge, you'll see that yellow line appears. That indicates that's where a loop cut would go. It's just a preview. When you click, it creates that loop cut. So I'm going to undo that with Control Z. And what we want to do is click, but don't click and let go. We're going to click and drag with the line going up and down. And we're going to click and drag to the left. So we get about a width comparable to that. We're going to do the same thing by previewing over the middle, click and drag to the right until we get the same approximate distance on the other side. And then now we're going to do 2 of them from the middle here. We're going to drag down, but don't go all the way to the bottom because we want a recessed bottom on this drawer. We're going to do 1 more and click it down just above that one, a little thinner because the bottoms are always a little thinner. And now we have what we need to pull out our drawer sides and front. We're not going to worry either about just how far we pull them out until we put the drawer in here and know exactly how long those need to be. So I click back on my regular tool here, my select tool. We're going to click in the gray area here and deselect anything that's selected and move over to polygon mode right here by clicking this box. We're going to come down and click on these front faces of the edge, including this small square here. We're just going to shift select. So we're going to select here. We're going to shift select the next one and the bottom square. But we're not going to shift the bottom one. We're going to shift the polygon above that because it's going to create that recessed look. Then we're going to click and select, shift select these 3 over here. With all those selected now, they're ready for an operation. We're going to use extrude. Now we can push this extrude button here, or you can simply hit E on your keyboard, and those will extrude straight out just by moving your mouse. And now we have the drawer. We just click anywhere and it's done. We don't need to change anything in our little menu down here, so that's fine. We're good to go. And to deselect these polygons, just click on an empty gray area. So now we have our drawer box. You can see on the bottom here, it is in fact recessed as we planned it to be. So I'm going to go back into object mode and pull the drawer just back along the y-axis into where it belongs. I'm going to put this in wireframe view, actually in X-ray and wireframe view. I'm going to turn to the side looking down the x-axis so that we can see, it looks like we have a little jog there. I'll fix that in a second. But I want to see how far this should go back. So right to there. So this is too far out the front. We want to drag that back to be right here along this front line so that the face is outside of that and sits right up against here flush. So with that selected, we'll go into edit mode. We will go into points mode. We will select, marquee select, and make sure you're in X-ray mode. We will marquee select the points in the front. We will grab our move tool. You can do this one here. That's fine for now. And move it along the y-axis till they are equal to the face of the drawer. Click in a gray area to deselect everything. You can move around, check that out, and go back into object mode again. Once again, we're going to turn off, we're going to go into solid mode, and there you have it. That's our drawer without a facing. So now we'll get that to slide in out of there nicely. When we, if we want to rig it, there's no real point to rig it. But we're going to complete this whole drawer first before we copy and paste it, because we don't want to have to do all of these operations over and over again for each drawer. So right now we're just going to go ahead and make this guy. And while I've got him selected, I'm going to go in here to the object menu and go down to apply and just put all transforms for now. So we need a drawer front. Let's just start with a simple one. We're going to make essentially a box that is a bit oversized from this hole, so you're not going to see any of that when the drawer is closed. So we'll just add mesh and go to a cube. Leave it the width that it is for now. Go ahead and click scale or hit S on your keyboard. We're going to scale this back pretty far, pretty thin. If you're having trouble, just scale it and then scale it again. We're going to move it along the y-axis here. And I'm going to size this probably by dragging it around in edit mode, but I'm going to go ahead and click S and Z to scale it along the Z-axis here to an approximate size. I'm going to rotate here and find out just how close to the front it is. Matter of fact, if we look down the X-axis here, we can move this right up against that facing. Perfect. We can now lift it up wherever the approximate place it needs to go. And now we're going to go into edit mode. We're going to look down the y-axis at it. And of course, so we can see what we're doing. X-ray and wireframe mode. And we want this to be evenly outside the edge of that drawer hole. So we're just going to marquee select the top 4 points. We're going to push G and then the Z-axis, the button Z for the Z-axis. We're going to go about that far down, just a little lip hanging over. We're going to do the same, just marquee select the bottom points there. We're going to go G and Z again and move up to approximate the distance on the bottom here. And then on the sides, there's another thing you can do. We're going to select those, marquee select the ones on the right, shift marquee select the ones on the left. And now we're going to click S for scale. And we're only going to scale on the X axis. So you would press X, and now you can scale just in and out without fear that you're going to scale in another direction. So that works right there. We click to get out of it, click to deselect everything, go back into object mode, go back into solid mode and turn off X-ray. And we've got our basic, very basic drawer front. So now we want to also make sure we will connect eventually the drawer front with the drawer on the inside, but we'll wait on that for a moment. First, we need to make this drawer front a little bit prettier. A big, giant, blocky front is not necessarily what we want. There's a few things we can do, one of them being beveling. So we're going to take this flat block with it selected, go into edit mode, and we're going to select the edges around the front. Now you can select these one at a time, like so, holding shift and whatever, but a good way to get the entire edge loop of something is to hold Alt and click that edge. And in this case it won't work because these are actually broken around the edges, but on most things it will select that line all the way through, but these we have to select singularly. For the corners, we don't want the back ends, just the corners here. So shift, click, and then before you select the next one, shift, click. So we shift select all of those. That's what that is called. Shift select, and then now we're just going to go over here and click the bevel tool, which is this one here with the little pyramid looking thing on the top. Click bevel, and you want to pull out. So click that yellow ball and pull outward, and you'll see that those edges start to bevel. Now that's silly, too much. We're going to go back and just give it a bit of an edge like that. So that'll work probably right there. Now this menu comes up again like every other tool that you use right afterwards. So on segments, I'm just going to pop this up to 2, which will divide that beveled edge into 2 pieces. You can see on the corners here instead of the one, rounding it out just slightly. There's a few other things that you can change here, but we're just going to leave that at the default. We're going to click off of that to deselect everything. And we're going to go back into object mode and deselect it to see what that looks like. So it catches the light a little bit along the top edge. It rounds that corner slightly as well and looks a little nicer. We're going to wind up doing that with to a degree with this front face especially, but pretty much everything here in a minute. So now I want to take the box on the inside and the drawer itself. We're going to slide that out together. I shift selected them to where they move together. And I'm not going to put those together just yet. I just wanted to open that up. And then we're gonna add our multiple drawers here to the front of this. But you can kind of see where we're going here. We will need a handle on there. We'll do that first before we duplicate everything. But let's go ahead and do some beveling here. Let's take this top piece. We just click on it. We go into edit mode. Then we are still on our bevel tool. And we're just going to pull up. We only have our front face selected. We want that not to be the case. So click off of there. Select the polygon mode. Make sure you click on X-ray. Otherwise, you're only going to select the faces that you can see. And then click and drag or marquee select all of those. Now when we bevel, you can bevel all the sides. We don't want to overdo it, but just enough. And then add just a second edge to that bevel, and it'll look pretty nice. So back into object mode. If we turn off our X-ray, you can see that's got a nicer kind of feel to it. We're also going to select the front. We're going to go into edit mode. It also has only parts of it selected. We want to make sure we get the whole thing, so zoom out far enough. Go into X-ray mode again. We can see all of those faces. They all have a point at the center. So you click and drag from an empty area across, and you have everything selected now. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see this, but when you pull away from this yellow bit, the ball, it creates the bevel. We're going to go ahead and add 2. Click away. Looking good. We're going to go back into object mode. And let's do that with the sides now. Those have, I just want to make sure that when we do this, it's not going to look too funky because these corners show the way they do. So we're going to click that. We're going to go into edit mode and we're going to zoom to where we can see everything. We're going to select everything, making sure we're in X-ray mode. And then we're going to pull that just slightly to create a small bevel. You can add a second one if you wish. And that's good there. We're just kind of rounding out the edges so that they feel a little nicer. We're going back into into object mode, clicking the other side, go back into edit mode again. We're going to select everything and just pull that bevel out slightly, just barely enough to give it a little bit of an edge. Not too much. We're not trying to make it round. Give it a second bevel there, a second edge, and that should be good to go. I think the inner drawer might need the same. So we're going to go back to object mode, select our inner drawer. It's like your inner child, but it's your inner drawer. With it selected, we're going back into edit mode. We're going to marquee select all of those guys. Bevel tool is still selected. We're just going to pull and bevel slightly on the edge. It's kind of hard sometimes to get it just right. That's good enough. We're going to click a second one just to round it a bit, and then go back into object mode. You can click away if you want. Go back into solid mode, turn off X-ray, and you get the idea. You can kind of see that those are a little nicer. Those holes are a little rounder than I would have chosen them to be, but they are all right. They work just fine. Okay, so everything's kind of nicely beveled a little here. I'm not going to worry about the back. It's not really going to show. If we want, I think I'm going to make this top, since the edge looks a little funky here, looks more like a refrigerator. I'm going to select it and I'm going to scale it in the X. So I'm pushing S and then X and then just moving my mouse in the appropriate direction up. And it's going to let that lip hang over the side just a little bit, looking a little more real. Okay, so now we need to make some type of a drawer pull. There's a billion ways we could do it. We could use a sculptural detail. We can use something really simple. I think it'd be kind of neat if we did something a little cool, not too difficult, but something kind of cool. We're going to go ahead and stop here. When we come back, we'll start with making a drawer pull, and then we're going to wind up doing a third part where we finish and texture the actual wardrobe itself. Don't forget to click subscribe and like and show all your friends.